Do you include
Robert?
do
You
you
want to
include
share it with the world?
the Cut podcast,
Do I
the
include what?
pre-show?
No,
Okay,
the
then I can
10-minute
say
drill.
so then I can say Prize Picks right now.
You can say Prize Picks all you want, buddy.
Finding out that Prize Picks is legal in Texas is a real game changer. And our Prize Picks sponsorship has been really, really awesome. I mean, honestly, Jeff, what an honor it has been to get to work with a company as good as they have been. But I'll tell you what, when we signed up to do a contractual pre show for 17 weeks, I did not expect to get a game quite like this one, Jeff, where so I was doing some research beforehand, like we do because we prep on this channel.
It's true.
The way that Eagles fans are talking about their team is a way that I have not talked about the Bears in December for a very long time. Like they're still going through detailed games. They're saying, "Oh, what can we take away from the Jets game, or the Giants game? Like, what are we seeing about this Eagles defense right before the playoffs?" And I'm like, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, they're still doing that. Oh wow, okay."
Right.
Like,
They're not looking at the draft. They haven't even thought about that. They don't care what position they're in, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a different world. They're 12 and
It's a
1.
very different world. I mean, like Jeff, we'll get into this. I'll say it in the drill. Jeff, is there a single defensive starter, one that's starting this week, that is better than their matchup?
No.
No, there's not. That's not a disrespect to Jalen Johnson. That's not disrespect to Jaquan Brisker. The Eagles are stacked. And it is a little mind-boggling, isn't it? When you look at this team and you say, wow, Jeff, it really is that bad out there, isn't it?
I finally found those pins I was talking about.
Nice. Ooh, it looks good.
So this is the old 46 logo. So you can see that on that orange pennant behind me.
I love that one.
That's my favorite. So I don't know. I figured I'd pull it out. I think the Bears are better than the Eagles back in 1946. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Little 46 power.
A little bit.
How's this spread only 8 points?
Fields would be my guess. Just because Fields has been doing. Look, that sounds like such a homer thing, Jeff. It's really me saying that Fields, as I understand it, did I hear he's less than 100 yards, like in the 90-ish range with 4 weeks to go from breaking the quarterback rushing record single season?
I don't think it's that close, but he's definitely close to 1,000 yards, which would put him as like one of only 3.
That's it. That's what it is. He's close to 1,000 yards. Honestly, let me look it up. What is the QB rushing record?
I don't know. It's Lamar's. Like Lamar's 1, Fick's 2. So, like Bobby Douglas had like in
1206.
There you go. 1206.
So if Fields has another 150 burger, it's not off the table. But
that's not off the table. Well, what's he at now?
Like 900. I think.
I mean, that's not.
Let me see.
It's not crazy. There's 4 games left.
Well, it should be crazy because counting on 100-yard rushing performances from your quarterback feels like I'm just, side-eyeing football, right? But here we are.
Yeah, but his over-under in the prop
he's at 905. That's crazy. I mean, given that it feels to me as if, JB, Justin Fields found this rushing identity 5 to 7 weeks into the season,
right?
It feels like he's about to set the rushing record,
and he
with half the games.
Yeah, and he missed a game. But you think about it this way. You've got 2 incredible teams they're playing the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
You got a Lions team on the rise. They're playing better. They're alive for the 7th seed. I mean, I've seen some people like, oh, they're this Lions team might make the playoffs. Jeff. And then the Vikings might sit their starters in the last week of the year, although they're getting killed right now.
Getting smoked.
So, who knows? Maybe they'll just be the 3 seed and sit their starters.
And have to compete for the 3 seed, no less.
To
make sure they don't drop to the 4. I mean, how close are
that won't
things?
happen because the NFC South is garbage. So I assume it's the Bucks, but whoever the NFC South sends, the NFC South has the 4 seed, right? Right now it's San Francisco or Minnesota for the 2 seed, assuming
and San Fran keeps winning.
The Eagles just keep doing this and have the 1 seed. So that's really kind of what it comes down to. But I think the Niners have the tiebreaker, so if they fall behind the Niners somehow, they might just say, we're just going to sit. We know we have the 3 seed, whatever. That'd be kind of crazy. I didn't expect that coming a couple of weeks ago. I knew the Vikings were overrated, but woo, like, wow,
Well,
this could be a thing.
And look, Jeff, while we're on the topic, I understand this isn't the Bears preview show, but I guess kind of, right?
It matters.
In a sense, look, I could connect this to previewing for next year a little bit, right? We talked earlier in the season when the Bears played the Lions, and we will talk again in 2 weeks when the Bears played the Lions about how the Lions had so many things going well for them. It was amazing they were this bad. I remember saying that with you, right? The rebound that they're having, I mean, it feels ridiculous. Wouldn't you agree that if they were going to even out to a 9-8, 8-9 record, that it would come in all the losses up front and all the wins? You would think it would be a little bit more like back and forth. But even. This team isn't that surprising. I mean, or at least the result, right?
No, because the end result is probably where I expected them.
They have had a lot of these wins. I don't know if I'd say these wins, but like they have played too well to not win a lot of games, or at least some games. And that's a place that I think you could make the same argument that if Justin Fields is able to sustain even this level of play, because I really, Jeff, like we'll get into this a little bit. I really don't love the almost, what would you call it? Like the way that everybody keeps attempting to distill Justin Fields' play into one thing or another. Some people distill it into Justin Fields is an elite playmaker. Shut up if you think he's not amazing. And then there are other people that distill it into Justin Fields isn't even an average passer yet. Looking at you, Hub Arkush, though I'm glad you're healthy. Truly amazing recovery. And say he's not even an average passer yet. Why are we so excited? And I'm like, can't we sit in the middle and stop acting like a second-year quarterback is a finished product? You know what I mean, Jeff? Like, I understand that's a boring, moderate, like milk toast take, right? But there are so many people that seem to want to declare Justin finished so that they can now judge him. And I feel like that's a little off the chart, but to use the same way that I was just talking about the Lions, Fields right now in his like points per game since that mini bye is playing too well to not eventually win games. Not just not this season, because the defense really is that bad, but next season, if the defense rises up to below average, Jeff, I mean, like if they are not the worst defense in football, I would imagine that the Bears are going to win a fair share of games. Let's not go crazy. I'm not trying to make it sound like that the Bears are going to be a lock for 13-4, you know, but the Lions are proving, frankly, I would say, Jeff, the Lions are good news in a lot of ways that say that if you build it, the wins will come. As wild as this cavalcade end of the season has been for them, the wins showed up at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They're just good. But so to your point, I look at this Eagles team. They should beat the Bears relatively handily. I look at the Bills team next week. They should beat the Bears relatively handily. I look at the Lions team the week after that. They should beat the Bears relatively handily. I mean, Jeff, how much Madden do you play?
I haven't in a few years, but
so
I'm familiar with it.
When you play on all Madden difficulty, the game cheats and you get scored on all the time. Like actually getting a stop, at least in my experience, with 3 downs instead of a turnover one way or another is extremely hard because the quarterback just makes all the right decisions and picks you apart. In that same way, I would imagine, Jeff, that these Bears losses I'm talking about, it's not even that I think necessarily that the Bears are going to get just consumed, chewed up, spat out, right? It's that the Bears are a tale of two teams. The defense looks very, very different, would you agree, than the offense? And the offense, as much as I love Justin, isn't going to score on every drive against some of these defenses. The opposing defense, though, the opposing offense, they might. Will. I mean, they really might.
Very possible.
And so if that's the case, like you're saying, Jeff, you mentioned that the line's -8. I would debate that that's got to be Justin Fields, like keeping the game close, finding ways to score. But I just cannot imagine that in a true shootout against this defense, the Bears will outshoot one of the most efficient offenses in football.
It's definitely not going to be a shootout. Chris says 76 yards a game. The over-under on the prop bet for this game for his rushing yards, which we'll get to, is 68. So I mean, he's getting projected around this neighborhood, and you've got the. I mean, again, the Lions are we like the Lions, but Lions are not good on defense, and
They're
the Vikings
better than they were, but that's not a gold sticker.
and the Vikings are bad on defense, as we're seeing. They've given up 20 points to the Colts in the first half, so they're not a good defense. So I don't know, like yeah, I think it's possible, and they're not going to have anything else. Who's he throwing to?
Oh, nobody.
Exactly.
But which
I didn't update the receivers on the visual, by the way, because it was too sad.
Well, I mean, Jeff,
I still have Mooney in there. That's a mistake. Sorry.
So,
guys.
Jeff, do you remember? I'm gonna really pull from history. Do you remember how it felt to cover this team during 2020, the end of 2020? Do you? Where Trubisky got the job back, got the soft part of the schedule, started whooping some of these like ladder teams, like a Houston team that could not possess the ball, and a Jacksonville team that could not possess the ball, and a really spicy Vikings game that I cannot believe that he played as well as he did. That might be one of the best Trubisky games ever. I mean, he's flat out earned that one. But do you remember, Jeff, that at that point, because the Bears were convincingly out of it, or at least they seemed like it, people had to find things to talk about. You remember that?
Sure.
In that same way, I'm incredibly unenthusiastic about the fact that with Chase Claypool, apparently his knee twinge was worse than meets the eye, just based on, we know he finished the last game, but him being out after a bye suggests that maybe he was playing a little bit tougher than we realize, right? Mooney's got a season-ending injury. People are going to reach for things to talk about, and I have little to no doubt that they are going to find ways to talk about Fields throwing for sub 200 yards again, as if that's some kind of negative. And this receiver room is awful. Like, I mean,
our friend Ross Reed put a tweet out there, like said, show up to the game in a Johnny Knox jersey and you could have 3 catches for 20 yards or something like that. And I said, no. I'd have 1 target, no catches, and 1 injury timeout because I'd get blown up. There's no way I'd be able to hold on to the ball. So, and neither could you. I'm just
certainly
saying.
No. But Jeff, the point Ross is making of at this point, I don't know if they have to sign somebody to just play in the offense, but we're at about that stage where whatever the off-street receiver is, like that's about the talent level of this receiver room. And that doesn't mean it's every excuse in the world. You know, like if I don't know, if Patrick Mahomes was thrown to a bunch of street receivers with Andy Reid calling plays for him, I have no doubt he would look perfectly fine. But we're not talking about a quarterback whose passing like proficiency is that far yet. That's
the
high
best
standard.
ever. Yeah, let's maybe not compare him against the guy that's like gonna shatter all the records.
Exactly. And so like I get it. There are a lot of people that want to see things take a major step forward, but even Aaron Rodgers really struggled 2 weeks ago against the Bears when he was throwing to anybody other than Christian Watson. You know, like he could barely place the ball. So I'm not trying to cape in advance. You know how this goes, Jeff. It's more to say that this game should be a slaughter. If it's a close game at all, that's a borderline miracle. Like everything about this game sets the stage. Frankly, Jeff, everything about these next 3 weeks sets the stage for some messy games from a Chicago perspective. But Justin Fields is still going to play in them. And if we learned anything from that Packers game, we learned, Jeff, that there's development to be had simply from playing the game. Because Fields we talked about the 10-minute drill, Jeff, where I expressed opinions like, I think it's not necessarily smart for Fields to play this game. And I just want to admit openly that I was completely incorrect. The coaching staff protected him well. He looked like he took major steps forward. He looked like his processing was better than ever, that he took the injury as a challenge to develop his passing game. And I appreciated seeing the step. I would imagine, Jeff, that we're still going to see a little bit more of that. I doubt it'll all be perfect. I doubt it'll all look good. I doubt it's all going to work, just like we saw in that entire second half, right, Jeff? But this, we haven't even gotten to the drill yet. This next 4 weeks, I think, needs to be viewed differently than almost every other NFL game you've ever watched because the season is lost. We don't want it to get back on track. Not really. Do you, Jeff? Like, I would tell you that pick number 3/pick number 2 sounds much better to me than, quote, going into the offseason with a win only to draft number 7.
Yeah, I think it's the worst they can do with one more win is 6 right now, and it'll probably actually be more like 5 or 4 by the time some of these other teams win. So they're in pretty good shape, even if they do sneak a win in. But it's less about the actual player than it is about how much that pick is worth, and
Yes.
that pick can be
Yes.
traded. And I'm not saying you're not. Maybe you just take the player. I don't know what their plan is, and they don't know what their plan is at this point. But uh, it's just math. That's all it is. And if you have a more valuable pick, that can turn into more picks, and that's what this team needs. Is they need more. They need an influx of talent. That's it. That's it. It just comes down to math. That nothing more. It's not like saying that they're guaranteed to get better. They're guaranteed to make the right pick. Anything like that. It's just about math and trying to get more capital for this team to do more good. That's it. So, do you want to run the drill?
Let's do it.
Okay.
I'm ready when you are.
I am writing down a timestamp, and you can go when you would like.
The Chicago Bears take on the Philadelphia Eagles in the city of brotherly love this weekend, as they are going to come out of their bye, hopefully swinging. We've seen what these Bears do with a mini bye. Now they've got a full bye to work with, even without a complement of receivers. But speaking of, Jeff, let's talk about what's going to happen when the Bears have the ball. Interestingly enough, this defense is going to look awfully familiar. It's a major evolution, or at the very least, it's a different style of the Fangio defense. The Eagles play a ton of the same Fangio style coverages in a similar 3-4, where they're making Brandon Graham fit, given that he's more of a standard defensive end, but with sweet edge rushers like Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, who are having a very, very good season. Is it really going to surprise you that even with corners like Bradbury, who, look, I could go down the laundry list of very good players on this defense on a team, Jeff, that's playing 12-1, but at the end of the day, it is a defense that is the best defense in the NFL against the pass, especially on later downs. So lucky for the Bears that they don't have any wide receivers and that they're going to be attacking on the ground, where the Eagles haven't been bad, but they haven't been great either. Justin Fields, obviously an electric running threat, has to be the difference in this one, unfortunately, as he and Khalil Herbert, two of the most explosive runners in the NFL by almost any metric across the league, are going to need to be able to generate chunk yardage if they're going to keep up with an Eagles offense that will likely score. But overall, Jeff, it's a Fangio style defense going up against an offense that has been developing its running game for the last 3 weeks, midweek. So it is actually the Bears hitting the Eagles where it will hurt a little bit, because I imagine they'll stay away from the pass. What are you seeing statistically?
Well, Rob, I just want to say this game is in Chicago, so the Bears do have the home field advantage here. There's 178 yards per game passing given up by this Eagles defense. You kind of mentioned that earlier, that they're very good against the pass, particularly in late downs. But that number is particularly impressive to me when you consider the fact that the Eagles are 12-1, meaning that they have been playing in front of a lot of games where you would think that they're giving up some garbage yards through the air. Nothing comes easy against this Eagles secondary. This is an incredibly good secondary. And like you said, the Bears are going to be missing their top targets in this one. Obviously, Darnell Mooney's on the shelf for the year. Who is Justin Fields actually going to throw to, right? So you don't really know if there's going to be able to be any kind of balance. I really think that leads into the matchup here. I'm going to say it's Cody Whitehair against Fletcher Cox, number 91. Veteran, great defensive tackle, one of the better defensive tackles in the league for a very long time. He's a really good player. I want to see if the Bears can move the football on the ground. It's going to have to be a veteran like Cody Whitehair holding his own against a really good player like Fletcher Cox. That's what I'm looking at, because I just don't see a lot of opportunities for success through the air for Justin Fields and this, ragtag unit that they're going to throw out there at the receiving core. What about you? What's your matchup of the week?
Well, I can't help but think that it comes down to anybody other than Justin Fields and or Khalil Herbert carrying the ball, trying to get past TJ
Is Herbert
Edwards.
Playing, Robert? Is Herbert playing?
He's going to get activated off of IR, isn't he?
Okay.
I've just made the assumption that he and Goddard are playing. So if they don't, know that I have made that assumption.
Okay.
That they will be activated off of IR, healthy and play, and that it's gamesmanship up to that point. So those two trying to get around TJ Edwards, to the or the linebacker, is going to need to be the difference. The Bears need to try to make these 5-yard runs into 9-yard runs. They need to stretch things just a little bit. Sure, Jeff, I would love it if Fields had another 155-yard game complete with another 50+ yard touchdown. Who wouldn't? But I have a feeling the Eagles are going to play a lot of quarters, a lot of cover two, a lot of too high shell, a lot of defense that keeps everything in front of them to try to keep Justin Fields gashing on the run from hurting them that badly. So I would imagine the Bears are going to need to make this a game of continuing to move the chains. Thankfully, that's actually an area they've been pretty good at, with one of the better third down efficiencies in the NFL. We'll see if they can keep it up against defense this good. But truly, Jeff, this Eagles defense is built to take advantage of pass happy offenses and make them play the run patiently. And they're going up against the only offense in the NFL that would rather run the ball than throw it anyways. So I'm curious to see if they schematically adjust. But on the other side of the ball, Jeff, I think that this matchup between the Bears defense and the Eagles offense is going to ultimately be what potentially hurries up the Bears offense and creates chaos on the other side. Because, Jeff, as much as we could break down scheme here with the Bears running what can sometimes be a chaotic variant of a bunch of cover 2 and cover 1 schemes, and a couple weeks ago was a somewhat stale version of the same thing. The real key to me, Jeff, is the matchups, where I'm not certain that a single Bears defender is better than the offensive player across from them. Jalen Johnson, you could pick your poison. Is he better than A.J. Brown? A.J. Brown is going off this year. Is he better than Devontae Smith? Devontae Smith's one of the best receivers in the NFL. Jaquan Brisker going up again. I'm assuming Dallas Goedert's going to play. I like Brisker. Goddard is one of the best tight ends in football. This Eagles offense, Jeff, is loaded. They run a wonderful RPO stretch scheme that looks basically like if you took Matt Nagy's intended offense, infused it with a little bit of Shanahan concepts, and built it around a running quarterback in Jalen Hurts. They have been refining this thing the entire season. They're as balanced as it gets. And when they do run the ball, it's a lot of those Shanahan concepts. I mean, this is a team that feels like, from a schematic perspective, Jeff, they have it all right. They are building around their players. They look good doing it. And they've made things as easy as possible for a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that looks very good this year. What are you seeing from stats? Do you find anything a little more hopeful for the beloved?
No, they're so good, Robert. They're so balanced. They can run the football, they can pass the football. If something's being taken away, they can just shift in the game. They're incredible in terms of their balance. But what I find most impressive, and this is amongst an impressive list of stats, is their turnover differential. It's the best in the league. The turnover differential is the number of giveaways minus the number of takeaways, right? Or number of takeaways minus the number of giveaways. They're number one in the league in takeaways. They're number one in the league in terms of giveaways, meaning that they have the fewest giveaways in the league. So they're playing opportunistic defense and shutting people down and ending games because of that. But they're also taking care of the football, which means that they run the ball well, of course, but Jalen Hurts isn't putting it in harm's way. But they're still producing good offense from their passing game. So it's a really impressive balanced attack that takes care of the football and takes it away on the other side. I mean, that's a Super Bowl type stat. It's really impressive. It's not anything that the Bears are going to get lucky from. They really don't put the ball in harm's way. For me, I mean, where are you going to go when you're so outmatched? I kind of want to see if Jack Sanborn versus Jalen Hurts in the run game. Maybe they can try to control a little bit of the explosive runs on the other side. You know, again, the Eagles have a quarterback much like Justin Fields, who can make a difference with his legs. He's a little bit more of a powerful runner, doesn't have the speed that Justin Fields has, but he's an impressive runner with the football as well. Maybe Sanborn can kind of keep him contained a little bit. That's my matchup. What about you?
So my matchup is going to be kind of a two-parter. I'm very excited to see Jalen Johnson match up against A.J. Brown, where a la Charles Tillman and Megatron, I'm well aware that none of those players are the same. A bigger, longer corner that likes to play press like Jalen Johnson does will match up better against a bigger, taller, more physical receiver like A.J. Brown. But when the script flips, Jeff, and they work to get when they work to get Smith on Jalen Johnson, I expect the matchup to go the exact other direction, where I don't expect Jalen to be able to keep up with Smith's quick feet and the way that he works to get open, because it's just not how Jalen plays the game. So those Eagles receivers, those dynamic duo against Jalen Johnson is somewhere where if the Bears are going to make the Eagles offense uncomfortable, it has to start there. I don't think they have the juice anywhere else.
All right, man. Well, that's a 10-minute drill. We did it in 10 minutes.
Nice.
Let's move on to overtime. We tied it up. Let's move on to overtime and let's talk a little prop bets.
Perfect.
So Robert, I have selected some prop bets that I think that you would like, and I want to hear your thoughts because now you're the pro.
I can't help but think that the Justin Fields prop bets, I would personally take the over on his rush yards, and I probably will this weekend, because I think that the Bears are being put in a position where they have to run the ball, and I do think Fields is electric enough to make a man miss. And I think what we have seen so far, JB, we've seen this in the Lions game, we've seen this in the Packers game, we've seen this all throughout the season so far. These teams will come out and they will prepare for Justin Fields by putting, in this case, it's Gardner Minshew on scout team, and then you face the genuine article and his speed just beats you a few times. You can't practice for Justin Fields. You can plan, but you can't practice for Justin Fields. But his passing yards, I'm taking the under, Jeff. I mean, I would love for him to surprise me, but this is an Eagles defense that is too good at stopping the pass, too good at pressuring the passer. This feels like a game where a lot of Bears passing opportunities will become scrambles, and a lot of their passing attempts will go awry. So it wouldn't surprise me if they get away from the pass altogether and just try to win this thing on the ground, so long as they don't get spaced out. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't where the yard's going to come from, right? Like, who's he going to throw to? Maybe Cole Kmet. So you look at Cole Kmet's 35.5. It might be the only real relevant receiving option here. So it does feel like a little high for Cole Kmet. I mean, he's going to need a few catches to get there. That's kind of tough for me. I'm going to go under on Chicago Bears sacks.
That's a good idea.
They have not rushed the passer well at all this year, but you have to take into account that the Eagles' offensive line is the strength of a very good team. They have a very, very good offensive line. I think that they do a good job of protecting Jalen Hurts. It's hard for me to see the Eagles needing to put the ball in the air much, and so I think that they'll have a low number of pass attempts to begin with. I don't see the Bears getting home twice.
To keep going on this, I actually think David Montgomery isn't going to crack 56 yards in this game. It's a good enough rushing defense, but it's mostly because of load, right? It wouldn't surprise me if this is a game. Look, Jeff, there's a couple ways this thing could turn, but it would take probably 18 attempts for David Montgomery to crack 56 rushing yards unless he breaks a big one. And especially since I think Herbert is going to be playing, there's less chance of him getting enough attempts to break that number. Jalen Hurts' passing touchdowns feels like an easy mark. I could be silly. Maybe he runs a couple of them in, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jalen Hurts counts for, what do you think is fair? At least 3 touchdowns, 230 passing yards. Literally always feels high to me, especially when you've got a dual threat quarterback that could account for 350 yards while still only collecting 220 yards through the air. So I might avoid that one altogether. I'm not saying under. I'm saying I might just avoid that one. But then when it comes to like Miles Sanders picking up the rushing yards, I bet you the Eagles account for 140 rushing yards, but I don't know who's going to account for them. Fields has been good enough at wiggling out of sacks that 2 could be all the sacks that they get. They could hit Fields 4 times, like 4 losses, but 2 of them could be sacks, and 2 of them could be those plays you've seen, Jeff, where he just squeaks out 1 yard and technically it's not a sack anymore. Are there any else on this board that you would look at and you would say, I feel like I would bet this? Or are there a bunch of these things where it's like, I think I know where I'd go here, but I'm not certain?
So I would actually wait and see if you get a bet on Jalen Hurts to pass and rush touchdowns. So they might change that, and it'll be like a 2.5. That I would probably go over. I think he would potentially account for more of that. The Bears are not good at stopping the run. They haven't been all year. They've been a little bit better than abysmal of late, right? They've been able to kind of come up the rankings a little bit, but I kind of like this Miles Sanders bet. That's probably the one that I would take the over on. I think that they've shown that they're willing to give him enough carries, and he's explosive enough that he can break a couple chunk
The
runs.
Sprier backs are killing the Bears. Like, I love Jack Sanborn. I think Jack Sanborn looks like an outrageously productive UDFA, and he's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, he plays with a lot of heart. As much as we would joke about that, Jeff, it's real and it's fun to watch. He's not the fastest cat out there. And so a guy like Sanders, a player like Tony Pollard, the faster running back mold, Raheem Mostert, is going to give Sanborn a little bit more trouble. And I don't think Nick Morrow is going to catch him either. So we'll see. But like you're saying, I mean, Jeff, all it takes is one 35-yard run and 10 more attempts to usually crank out about 70 yards on the ground against these Bears.
All right, let's leave it there on the 10-minute drill, Robert, with the overtime there with the prop bets. Appreciate everybody joining in. We'll be back next week with Buffalo.
Yes, we will.
I don't think Herbert's playing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out in the middle of that, but I don't think Herbert's playing. I haven't heard anything. I heard that they expect him back next week.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think, are we still broadcasting, by the way?
Yeah, we're still broadcasting.
Perfect. Just making sure.
You don't want to say anything mean to me?
No. I wanted to be sure. Like, I'm down. It wouldn't surprise me if he has to wait a little bit. At the end of the day, Jeff, like Herbert, I want Herbert in there enough that I'm going to sit and wait on it because we're at the IR cutoff and a lot of guys just come right back. Right. At least nowadays, now that it's just a 4-week wait. And for all I know, these could be the Bears being all gamesmanshipy. But like you're saying, it's mostly an I want it to be this way, more so than it has been reported this way. Because the Bears have been pretty straight down the middle. If they wanted to be more gamesmanshipy, they would have listed Justin Fields as limited for 3 more days on account of illness and gone, I don't know if he's gonna play. But instead, that's been two games in a row where they've come out on the Friday injury report and said he's full go, he's playing, and that doesn't seem to be their way.
True. Yeah, I picked him up. Excuse me. I picked him up, Herbert, that is, in fantasy, just in case he did come back. And you're always looking for backs, and he's got juice. It's just kind of this random insurance for maybe a playoff Hail Mary in the flex position. But
it's bizarre to me that Herbert gets listed as the flex. Not because it's unfair. I mean, he should be, Jeff, but because schematically speaking, I would imagine the Bears would rather have 2 Herberts than this Montgomery and Herbert pairing. Not that that's a bad thing. I think Montgomery is one of the better pass catching backs. And this sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But as a 3rd down back, Jeff, David Montgomery is awesome. I mean, legitimate power threat on short yardage downs, legitimate check down threat to pick up almost literally any yardage because him in the open field is just dynamite. A very good pass blocker if you need him going that route. But as far as a down to down efficiency runner, that's not really his game. But Jeff, on 2nd and 10, when the Bears call a zone read that they can then hand the ball off to Khalil Herbert, that extra defender that hangs around and watches Justin Fields creates a big old seam that Herbert's been just sprinting through for some of these massive gash runs that you can think of cutting up the backside. It's not an accident that a guy with Herbert's speed is taking advantage of the extra seams that Justin Fields is able to create, whereas I just don't think Montgomery's quite quick enough to the hole to take advantage of it. But like Julie's saying, I mean, Montgomery is a heart and soul Chicago Bear. I don't blame anybody for being massive Montgomery fans. I myself go back and forth because you can feel his passion for the team. Corny, but true, right, Jeff? It's just a matter of how do you make sure that we keep in mind who this player is, what they're good at, what they're not as good at, as you keep a fan favorite around.
I mean, I've said it before. I'd flip the carries. That doesn't even necessarily mean that the touches don't need to be even, because I like him as a receiver out of the backfield.
Love him as a receiver. I wish that they would throw to him more.
I think that needs to happen. So, I mean, in terms of touches, I think that you could see a really nice balanced Bears attack going forward where the running backs are heavily involved. But I would like to see Khalil Herbert have more carries. That's just what I think I think we're underutilizing. I think the Bears are underutilizing Herbert as a ball carrier. And so going into next year, I hope they do some self-scouting, and I hope that they look at that and say, going forward, regardless of whether or not they decide to bring Montgomery back. But like, let's say they do. I think that they come back with it and say, okay, maybe we need Herbert to pick up his receiving game and his pass blocking game a little bit more so that we can not telegraph that we're going to hand the ball to him, because that's certainly what they're doing now. If he's in the game, they're probably handing the ball to him. So Herbert needs to take his game up. And if he does that, he should earn more carries, not necessarily more opportunities to pass block or more, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to make the defense respect it. So if he can take his game up to the next level, maybe he then gets the lion's share of the carries, but maybe it's more split in terms of, this is modern football. You don't have to have one bell cow. You can have two guys that keep each other fresh and play to their strengths. And Montgomery is a guy that is a valuable football player in this league. I'll fight for that. They got the money. They could bring him back. He's a heart and soul guy. I'm totally fine with that. I think that has value. People are kind of a little bit too analytical sometimes about like never pay a running back. I don't buy that. Like, running back salaries are already not that much. Unless you're talking about like Christian McCaffrey and kind of these like crazy.
That's the problem, right?
But does he think he can get paid like Christian McCaffrey?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, if you told me that David Montgomery and his agent were going to walk into the Bears negotiating room and say, I'm a 200 to 250 carry guy per year, pay me like one, and the Bears spat back production and he said, your offensive line's been bad or whatever, right? Then I don't know if there's a deal there to be made. But if David Montgomery came back, it doesn't have to be had in his hands and said, I know what I am to this team. Pay me $7 million a year. I think the shoe fits really, really well. It just depends on the money. I think you'd agree, Jeff, if they announced a $39 million 3-year extension for David Montgomery, any fan would be like, oh, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And suddenly sub 4 yards per carry would probably look a little bit more glaring, right? But as long as the main thing I look at with Herbert, because you talked about Herbert's game getting better, Jeff, I don't think it's an accident. Even with Herbert's carries being somewhat telegraphed, Justin Fields allows you to have one explosive runner going one direction, the other explosive runner going the other direction. And if a slow-footed linebacker makes the wrong snap decision, they're very wrong and out of position in an instant. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, there was somebody in the offseason that was suggesting just a couple days ago that the Bears potentially pick up Tony Pollard. Hello, Cat. And you can envision, Jeff, that if they had an explosive runner like Pollard paired with an explosive runner like Herbert, you could basically play the entire game just toying with linebackers at that mesh point. Because again, once Justin Fields establishes himself as one of the most dangerous running quarterbacks in football, if not by breaking the record, the most dangerous running quarterback in football, the other guy that threatens to get the ball becomes that much more important. Because if that guy can cut you deep, you're not much of a baseball guy, right, Jeff?
I know baseball.
Okay, so there's this, it's like having the importance of your 4-hitter to protect your 3-hitter. That if your 3-hitter, generally known as the best hitter on your team, is extremely good and draws a lot of walks, you need that 4-hitter to be good enough to make them pay for not squaring the 3-hitter up and giving him a chance to make plays, right? And within that, whether it's Montgomery, whether it's somebody else. I know a lot of people have looked for Saquon. I don't know about that idea, but this isn't that podcast. I just want the Bears to leverage the fact that Fields is not always going to be able to make these plays if the Bears don't build in counter punches for when the defense over rotates to defend his legs. Wouldn't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
So the Bears need to develop those counter punches. And I have not seen Montgomery show the long speed to take advantage of linebackers stepping a few steps too far one direction. And that doesn't mean I hate Montgomery. It just means that the plays that are working with Herbert don't work with Montgomery. And I don't know if the Bears want to be varying their run game based on the back that's in the game. That's all. I don't know.
Sounds good, man.
It's if there's one thing I guess I'll finish with, Jeff, it's that from a preview show perspective, I feel like the most fun thing about these next few games is that the Bears have very clearly been developing their offense as they went since the mini bye. I mean, they're constantly installing new running plays that, Jeff, I'm sure you can see where you go, oh, wow, they've never done that before. Like if I said quarterback bash, do you know what that is?
No.
So obviously, Jeff, you know that standard quarterback runs that you've seen, and by that I mean like a standard quarterback option run, like a zone read. The blocking will go for the running back, right? So they will block for the running back, and then the quarterback has all that space on the other side, right? Bash is the opposite. Bash is where the quarterback gets the blocking. So it would be a sweep for Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields hands it off, it's the running back that gets that other lane. And so with a runner like Herbert, I mean, if I sound like I love Herbert, it's because I do. But with a runner like Herbert, that's a ton of space to take advantage of. And you end up with interesting opportunities for Fields to pick up way more blockers than the opposing team is accustomed to having to deal with on a field side run. What?
It is 30-0.
They're just getting pantsed?
30-0. It is. There's just a pick six.
Oh my gosh, they're still in the second?
It's the second quarter. 6 minutes, almost 6 minutes left in the second quarter. It's 30-0.
You want to hear the other thing? Okay, Jeff, I got to ask you this. This is unrelated, but since there's football on, I get to do this. Okay. So Jeff Saturday comes into the NFL with next to no real coaching experience. The bar's on the ground, and it makes performances like this always look better because the bar was already on the ground. If you're Jimmy Irsay, is his audition going well, or are you still hiring another coach at the end of the year?
I don't know.
I know you're not Jim Irsay.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a wild guy. I mean, he's fueled by substances, right? I mean, it seems pretty clear that man is living life to the fullest. So I have no idea what goes through his mind. It seemed crazy to bring on Jeff Saturday, but whatever.
Do you think that Jeff Saturday,
this team was supposed to be good, by the way? The Colts are supposed to be good at the beginning of the year. A lot of people just said they're going to just have that division's theirs. So if they got woken up and to kind of tap to their potential, then there you go, right? Like, I mean, this isn't like no talent. They were shedding
right,
cap space and all that. No, this team was supposed to compete. So it's not crazy that they found something. This was a team that was supposed to be good. So I don't know, but 30-0 on the road against the Vikings, like, what is happening?
I mean, Jeff, that's been like the theme of this year, hasn't it?
It's been a weird year.
A whole bunch of I've loved it. Honestly, I would take it again. Like, not only have defensive coaches gotten better. Look, I'm a Bears fan. Do you see the jacket? Like,
everybody sees the jacket. You can see that jacket from outer space.
Yes, you could. And Jeff, what that means is that while there were so many people over the last few years that have even gone so far as to say holding shouldn't be a penalty because I like touchdown passes, people like us have been some of the only people that have gone, I kind of like defense. Can the defense play defense too? You know what I mean? Like, we're Bears fans. Defense is in the blood. Like, we want to see good defense, just like we want to see good offense. And so this season's been super fun. But you look at the Colts. I mean, Jeff, there's got to be nothing better for these Colts than the fact that they're probably the fifth. What do you think they're even the fifth? Like, the fifth worst underperformer. Like the Rams, they're
the list.
The Buccaneers, just because Tom Brady's on the team, like they've not even been that bad, right? But just because Tom Brady's on the team, they've got more wins than the Colts, is what I'm trying to drive at. Like the Broncos. I mean, there are so many of these. The Packers are on this list of just like teams we totally thought were going to be better, and they're not. And the Colts just haven't really been talked about. Like, they're not a team that's getting ragged on one way or another because there's so many other underperforming teams to mention in the same sentence. It's just kind of funny from a PR perspective where it's like the Colts are not having to deal with the media brunt after they fired Frank Reich. Like, the questions, I guess, are answered. But then you look at like the Rams. What on earth is happening in Denver? Like the whole nine. And what a funny year.
Yeah. I'm an NFL fan. Obviously, the Bears are my team, but I'm an NFL fan, so I like the storylines. Every year is fun, but this year seems particularly crazy. But then I look at like my preseason bets, and I got some stuff wrong. Like, believe
Ooh,
me, I got some stuff wrong.
what? Tell me.
Well, I just like,
Brag.
I got a lot of stuff right. That's where I was going. It's like I think it's chaotic, but then I look and I'm like, oh, I got a ton of this right. Like I mean, the Bengals division bet is still out there. We'll see what happens, but I bet the Vikings to win the division. They're gonna win it. Like I mean, they're way out in front. But that one seemed pretty obvious to me, and that they were they had the second best odds. It was the Packers, but I faded the Packers. I had Packers under. I took an alternate under win bet on the Packers. Like, so I got more of a payout. It's like plus 200 for them to, I think, be under 10 or under 9 or something. I'm going to win that. Like, there's bets like that. I got the Seahawks wrong. I thought they were going to be bad. I thought they were telling us they were going to be bad, and they aren't as good as they were a few weeks ago, right? Like, I mean, I think they've kind of come back down to earth, but I thought they were going to be like number 1 overall pick bad. And they certainly weren't that, right? So, I mean, there's good and bad, but overall, I kind of went through my bets, and I think I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be above water, and then a couple things could happen where I have a nice finish.
Nice little kick out.
Nick Bosa, I have a bet on him to lead the league in sacks, and he's currently leading the league in sacks, and that's a pretty nice little payout. And then I also have Nick Bosa, league MVP, defensive
DPOY.
Player. Yep, deep defensive player of the year. So if those two things hit, it's very nice. And then of course Super Bowl bets and stuff like that.
There really isn't a defensive player that's like
absolutely
dominant, right?
The best defender on the best defense. I know we talked about the Eagles being a very good pass,
and
defender.
They are.
Overall defense, I think it's the Niners by a long shot. They're carrying, Brock Purdy now, right? Like, I mean, I think it's pretty impressive what he's doing, but that's a defensive led team. The Niners are going to win that division. They're going to potentially be the 2 seed, particularly with this thing going on with the Vikings right now.
And I mean, to your point, Jeff, like when your defense is so well built that you would look at that and say that's a very good defense, right? I'm looking at the Eagles. I'm looking at oh my gosh, I just had one. Washington's defensive line. When there's too many cooks, you can't really pick one. Like Deron Payne's not the DPOY. The Montez Sweat is not the DPOY.
Yeah, it's like they could win best ensemble,
right?
But,
exactly,
but not best actor, right?
Exactly. And so
Bosa's clearly the best defender on that team.
Clearly the best.
On
the best on the defensive line. I mean, this sounds so silly. He's in the broadcast picture on every play.
Yeah. Like, he's the guy they're putting forward. Absolutely. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's why a DB would probably have to collect 13 interceptions to win DPOY. Like, you would just have and probably score 4 touchdowns. Like,
I'm not saying it's a smart bet to bet on Nick Bosa at the beginning of the year in terms, like, I'm not saying like why didn't everybody do it? Because it was only plus 1,400 to win Defensive Player of the Year. But to me, it looked like there was a chance that this could all line up. He could lead the league in sacks. He could be on the best player on the best defense. And if that happens, that's who wins that award. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Those two would put me up nice. There you go, so Chad. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you can't celebrate until those things happen. But the divisional bets are starting to come to roost. And so those are looking good. Again, the Bengals, if they can pull that out, that's good. I had the Niners win in the West. I actually flipped that bet. I had the Rams beginning of the year, and I saw how terrible they were on the first game, and I immediately put a bet in on the Niners to win it after that first game, and to cover my loss of the Rams bet. Plus, I was like, okay, it's the Niners, so that a little bit of a hedge there, but it was like a no, I'm bailing really quick, and so that's already
basically you caught the fact that week 1 is always known as like what overreaction weekend.
I reacted quickly, right? But some might have said overreacted, but
that's the point.
They look terrible
because other people were saying overreaction. You were able to react and still get decent odds. I would imagine.
Yes. So I was able to cover that. So yeah, we'll see. I'll post at the end of the year, kind of the final result.
I'm excited.
So but yeah, I snuck a peek and things are looking pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's the drill. Everybody have a wonderful Saturday of football, and then we'll be right back here on the channel for Bear With Me after the Eagles game, one way or another. But we'll find something to say. I have
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
We'll see you
And
Monday on Bear and Balance.
absolutely.
All right, see you guys.